Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome in to Kickin' It, our second episode of the year of our technical rebranding, which isn't really rebranding. We've decided to double rebrand by putting the exact same song we had before on again. So, you're basically listening to the exact same show. The only difference is this time we've got Carl Mogline alongside me. By the way, I'm Noah Taborda. He is in somewhere on the West Coast. He's been traveling a lot, so he's a very traveled man. He has a lot of wisdom to share with us. Carl Mogline, how you doing?
I'm good. It's good to be on. Excited to be on the show.
Yes, I'm excited to talk a little bit about soccer. We've had a lot of news over the past couple days, whether it be transfers, preseason games, International Champions Cup, and of course the Gold Cup. We talked last time we talked, we were talking about the U.S. with their tragic defeat to Jamaica. By the way, we didn't actually get to talk about it on the show, but Panama did end up losing to Mexico in one of the uglier games we've seen. Panama's coach has gone on to say that he wants to probe the game because he thinks the match was fixed, which it very well could have been. Today, however, they did manage to pick up third place by beating the U.S. 3-2 in penalties after a 1-1 draw throughout the first 120 minutes of play. But today, we've got some other stuff to talk about, and we are going to kick it off with predictions of leagues, which we have been doing, of course. Last time we covered Ligue 1. If you're interested, you can go back and listen to it. But before we get into that, the most horrifying part of the show, me listing off for a good minute the social media. Alright, so first of all, you can follow us on Spreaker. We, of course, if you're listening to us on National Sports, go hit that follow button. If you are listening to us on Infinity Sports, do that as well. You can like us on Facebook, Infinity Sports, and National Sports. There you'll probably be able to find a bunch of the different shows. Kickin' It, however, does have a Facebook page, which you can find. We are 700, 800 likes, something like that. So go like us on there as well. You can find me on Twitter at Noah Taborda, Carl at Carl_PM, and you can also follow both of these on Twitter. Kickin' It does not have a Twitter, though it may eventually have one. But both National Sports and Infinity Sports have a Twitter, and we are done. There we go. I think that was one of the most... I think that was record time for me in terms of getting all of that done.
I will say you did forget one thing. If you want to go listen to Noah talk even more and hear some of his opinions, go follow him at Noah Taborda on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of... Also, because, Jake Liker isn't here and he's normally on. We'll give you his Twitter information, too. You can follow him at Jake Liker. One of the more consistent tweeters I know. If you like puns, he's definitely the guy you want to be following. Alright. So, without further ado, let's get into it. And we are going to start with Netherlands. Eredivisie, as it is known. Last year, after a pretty long stretch of dominance from Ajax, PSV dominated Ajax, winning by 17 points, led by, of course, now Manchester United winger Memphis Depay. Great year, 29 wins, 1 draw, and only 4 losses. And they, of course, will be in the Champions League group stage. Ajax came in second with 71. AZ Alkmaar finished with 62. And then in one of the more interesting systems that we have in European soccer, 4 teams, 4 through 7, qualify for the competition playoff, whereas number 8 actually made it straight to the group stage. Out of the competition playoff, which leads to Europa League, we had Vitesse, who would end up making it. And then in what I think every league should adopt, the relegation playoff, we had Roda JC Kerkrade and De Graaf. Both made it through to the next, or made it up to Division 1. I like that system, It makes sure that we're not getting a bad team from a lower division. And I think it would be pretty fun, to watch a team from Division 2 go up against the worst of Division 1 and see where they actually match up. In terms of goal scoring, PSV led with Depay 22 and Luc de Jong with 20. And then in assists, Hakim Ziyech and Jetro Willems led with 16 and 12, respectively. Alright, Carl, you're finally getting to talk again. This is going to be, Netherlands, though it is not one of the major leagues, is always an intriguing league. And you always seem to have some pretty decent teams come out of there. This year, it's going to be interesting because you've seen a lot of teams sell players. Where do you think these teams stand? Where do you think this league stands in terms of the greater spectrum of Europe?
Well, I think that we can continue to see them. I mean, they've got a fantastic national team. They create a lot of great players. I mean, if you think about the great players in the world, quite a few of them are coming out of Holland. But their league becomes somewhat of a feeder league at times, where the best players from their league are going off and playing in places like the Prem. And by doing that, that means their league often is actually a very young league. At times, it can be very young or it can be experienced. It's kind of like a AAA in baseball type of system, where there's sometimes young players and up-and-comers, but sometimes there's some very experienced players, which leads to a really fun game because there's a combination of that experience with that useful talent.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, this is a league that has sold a lot of talented players. You see a guy like Luis Suarez, who, of course, came from Ajax, PSV now producing Depay, Wijnaldum, who is also headed out to Newcastle. Lots of talented players coming from PSV, especially Santiago Arias. And this is a team that's going to find themselves in the Champions League. Finally, this will be a good test to where they stand. So, without further ado, let's get straight into our top three prediction. We're going to predict we're going to go with number 3, and then we'll give you the goal scorer. So, starting out with number 3, Carl, who do you have for this year?
I think Aze is going to stay there in third because I think they are better than that tier right below them. But in the end, I think they're still a little bit behind PSV and Ajax. So it's a little bit of a hint on who my top 2 are. But I think Aze is still a great team, and I think they're still a solid team. And I think they could do some things in Europa League, but I just don't see them going over the hump and making it into that top 2.
Yeah, I was tempted to maybe slip in a surprise here for the top 3. But you just look at the difference between a lot of the teams. I know Feyenoord had a shot last year, but AZ is just a very talented team. I think they're a good team, but I think that they are the team that has to be the favorite to finish in third place in the upcoming year. All right, on to goal scorer. And for me, I got to go with Luuk de Jong. The guy finished with 20 goals when Memphis Depay was on his team. Depay now headed to United. He's going to get a lot of the attention. I mean, the third goal scorer, Jorginho Wijnaldum, also left, which means that basically everything's going to flow through him. I think he's going to be a big part of this team, and I could see him scoring potentially upwards of 30 goals next year. So
I absolutely agree with you on this one. I mean, he was already really close to the scoring title, but he's got a talented team around him, and a lot of the main scorers are leaving, but that doesn't mean all the guys who are hitting assists. I mean, you look at it, he's second, the third, and he was fourth in assists, in fact, in this league. I mean, there's a lot of people who can distribute the ball, who can help out there, and I think it's really important because I think that PSV has got a very good chance in this league. Obviously, they're in the top 2, but do you want me to head right into predictions then, who my 1-2 is then?
Go ahead.
Alright, so I do have PSV just over Ajax. I think the big thing is, though, this was 17 points. This was not a close division. Well, Depay is a big loss. I just don't think he's 17 points of a loss. So I think PSV is going to take that momentum of the championship and continue forward.
All right, I think this is a very close race this year. I know you lose Wijnaldum and you lose Depay, and that is a big hit. It's a lot of pressure on Luuk de Jong to really carry the scoring load. I think they will find somebody to replace him. However, I do think that Ajax will win this division. I think this is a team that often has off years, but always seems to bounce back. This is a team that's dominated Netherlands. Debatably one of the greatest teams in European soccer history. And I think they'll be able to bounce back this year. Jasper Cillessen, of course, still in goal. Yaya Sanogo on loan from Arsenal. You've got guys like Goudet. You've got Fischer. You've got Davy Klaassen. And I think at the end of the day, they survive what I think will be a grueling season and take home first place. All right, on to our second league of the day, and that'll be Portugal, Primeira Liga. This one could be a little more intriguing. Portugal last year had finally a quarterfinal representative. Porto, for the first time in a long time, I believe it was back when they won the Champions League against AS Monaco with Jose Mourinho at the helm, got into the quarterfinals, and now they're going to be looking for a successful year once again. However, despite doing well in the Champions League, they did lose the league as Benfica took home the title with 85 points, Porto in second with 82, Sporting with 76, and then a long gap down to number 4 with Braga at 58. In terms of goal scoring, well, Jackson Martinez, who was a big name during transfers, who's now headed to Atletico Madrid, was the leading goal scorer, but followed up right behind him. Benfica had had number 2 and number 3, Jonas with 20 and Lima with 19. We had Marco Matias with 17 and Islam Slimani with 12, tied with Hassan from Rio Ave. And those are our goal scorers. This league, I think, could provide even more intrigue than Netherlands. A couple of big departures. However, it's still a very talented young league. Porto known to be one of the best feeder teams. And I think it's maybe you can say, I think it's a little rude to call them a feeder team because they did make the quarterfinals. But in terms of developing talent and really distributing them out to great teams, they may be one of the best in the world at that. So, Carl, what are your thoughts on Porto in general, to be specific, in terms of how they'll bounce back to the loss of their leading goal scorer and, of course, Danilo, one of their best defenders?
I really worry about them, especially with how Benfica seemed to be kind of up and coming. I mean, they took the league. I mean, it was a very close race. They won by 3 points. It's a tight league, and I mean, any game could have shifted that, especially the games between those two teams. But I worry about them specifically because you talk about those big losses, but Benfica had the top 2 scorers after that. And that means they still have their offensive punch, and it isn't just one guy either, because they do have those 2 guys overall. Porto's a great organization. I know they develop that talent, and I would not be shocked whatsoever if Porto did take the title, but I feel like Benfica doesn't have enough losses to make them go down in the standings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when it comes to Porto, I think this is a good team, but like you said, they did lose a couple of guys, and there seems to be a couple teams behind them that are really on their tails right now. I think they can feel the pressure right now of having to replicate what they did last year while also maintaining a certain level of talent within their league. At the end of the day, I think this team lost a couple of important guys, and I think that's going to hurt them at the end of the day. Alright, so time to reveal our top 3 for Portugal. We'll go with number 3 first, and then we will have our goal scorers. So, Carl, your number 3 team, I think this might come as a surprise to some people. Who do you have in third?
I got Porto. I mean, I just worry about them overall. I've expressed these already, and I think that Sporting CP is a type of club that is kind of up and coming. You already talked about Islam Slimani. You've got a guy like Freddie Montero. There's quite a bit of talent there, and I worry because I think Porto's just sold away, and I think that's the issue with they're not a feeder team, obviously. I think that they're a very good development team overall, and that's part of why they're a good club, because they can buy good players already with the money they're bringing in from these transfers, and they are a good development club. And again, I said it wouldn't shock me if they do better, but I think that they really do worry me with those losses, and I think they're losing more than they're actually gaining overall, even though they develop so well.
Alright, now on to goal scorer. I'm going to start with mine. I changed this one last minute because I almost forgot about this transfer. But I'm going to go with Teo Gutierrez of Sporting. This is a guy who, over in Argentina, was named one of the best players in the league. An extremely efficient goal scorer for the Colombian national team. Has started in many games. He is known as a bit of a wild card in terms of personality. One of the crazy stories. He told his team when he was playing, I'm blanking on the team, but he was playing in Argentina with a different team than he plays with now, or than he used to play with. And he told them that he was going on international duty, when in fact he was only going on vacation. So he decided to skip a couple games because he was on international duty. I believe he went to Spain to vacay. But he's still a very talented scorer. Carl, who do you have leading the league next year?
All right, this is a kind of a risky pick because he's an older guy. Jonas has been around for a really long time, but I think that experience is key. You know, this also, kind of like the Dutch league, is a little bit of a younger league just by the nature of it. They tend to bring up, in a way, prospects. That's not quite the word when we're looking at soccer, but they are